I think that you should always be unapologetic about your sexuality. And that doesn't necessarily have to be for like women, you know what I mean? Women practitioners, but I'm speaking for women and women identifying people because that is my experience, you
Right,
know,
of course.
And
Yeah.
that's something that is important.
Hello, mystics, and welcome to the Occult Unveiled. I'm your host, Ashley Ryan, and today we're going to be diving into the mystical realms of magic with our very special guest, Bri Luna, the creator of TheHoodWitch. We're going to be exploring her upcoming book, Blood, Sex, Magic, available in October. Welcome, Bri.
Hi, Ashley. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm so excited to have you here. You know, when I got the pre-copy of your book, I opened it and I felt such a connection to you because your story on how you started your journey in magic is very similar to mine, which was a turning point of a bad relationship, forcing you to empower yourself.
Yeah, that was really, something that I wanted to make known, especially because I don't really share a lot about my private life, my relationships on social media. And I felt like it was something that the world needed, especially women identifying people, just women in general, like feeling empowered and, practitioners of magic.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we do have relationships that are challenging. And for me, really coming into myself and owning my power, was the beginning of that. That was really like the beginning.
Yeah, it was the catalyst that propelled you into exploring something beyond. And that was the same way for me. You know, when I hit my lowest, I was like, what can I do to empower myself? And it was through magic, this creative force that I was able to harness my life.
I think that, throughout my life, I've always obviously have been very in touch with other realms and in touch with my, I guess, like spiritual like essence. And as a kid, I didn't really know what that was or like what that meant. And like, in my book, you guys will read that as well with like learning about like my grandmothers and like my spiritual practice. So I will say that really jumping in and starting TheHoodWitch, that relationship was that catalyst. But prior to that, I'd already been doing tarot and like doing spells on boys when I was like 10 years old. So that's a part of it.
Yeah, the exploration and pushing yourself. In my tradition, we call it being a magician and being able to create change around you for the betterment of yourself and hopefully other people. Ideally, we don't want to ever like hurt anyone. And that's like you take magic to like a whole nother level. When you're going through your roots and talking about setting boundaries and protection, I really want to talk about the ancestral work within blood, sex, magic. What is ancestral work? Can you tell our audience about it?
So for me, and I'm speaking only on my practice, is that ancestral veneration is something that is really important to me.
Ancestral veneration. Ancestral veneration is different in every culture, but the core of this practice is showing respect and reverence for one's ancestors through prayer, rituals, and offerings.
Honoring those who have come before me, honorable ancestors, those who wish only for my highest good, and people, not people, but my grandparents specifically play a huge role in my ancestral veneration. For some people in this world, they don't know their ancestors by name, be that by adoption or, other circumstances, or maybe they just don't have great relationships to their families, and that's okay too. So when I do ancestral reverence or work, I specifically ask for like my benevolent ancestors to be present to those who wish to help and guide me on my path and on my journey. So I think it is important for us to honor the ones who've come before us. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be like blood lineage. These can be people who have played a huge part of your journey and your life and supporting you and nurturing you and helping you. So people who have passed away, honoring their lives and doing so with gratitude. And, when I say honoring, for me, it can be something as simple as like setting up an altar where there are candles and water and libations and their favorite things and their photographs. And so I guess we'll get into that later, but being like a multiracial person, I'm Mexican and Black. Both of those cultures have such a deep reverence for ancestral work.
Yes. And I think a lot of people are really interested and want to know, like, what is that relationship like with your ancestors? Like you talked about, there's benevolent ancestors and maybe ancestors that are not as kind to you. How do you like figure out the difference?
I can only speak for myself, and that is going to obviously, being a witch or a practitioner of magic, there is no real umbrella for that, where it's just like a one size fits all. What my practice is not necessarily going to be someone else. So I don't want anyone to think there's a right and wrong way of how you decipher those things. But for me specifically, I know my relationship to my grandmothers and my grandfathers, and anyone else, who does step forward in my work. They tend to make themselves known, be that in like readings or, in dreams or in other readings, like I said. So that's just something that I hold very dear to me. But I specifically work with ancestors. My grandmothers specifically really are the shot callers of like my practice. But I do also work with Santa Muerte, and I do have other guides that help me. So yeah, there's that.
Oh, that's so cool to learn about, like the matriarchy and that lineage.
Matriarchy. As opposed to the patriarchy, the matriarchy is a social system where women hold the primary positions of power and authority. And it's about time.
Are both sides of your family spiritual, both the Hispanic background and the African American background?
Yes, I would say so. So interestingly enough, when you bring up matriarchy, my family, and this is something that I've always really, I guess it means a lot to me, coming from a family predominantly of women who are very much powerful and own their power and own their energy and own their voice, to me, I think growing up and seeing that sisterhood with my mom and her siblings, she has 6 sisters. Wow. And I grew up with all of my aunts, and they're very strong personalities. My mom is the oldest sibling, and I love her. Today is actually my mother's birthday. She's a Virgo queen. But growing up and having like so many strong women and their personalities really did help cultivate just the essence of knowing who I am and feeling confident and feeling strong. And like, I guess I just having that like sense of like having like aunts and cousins, and just we have a lot of women in our family. I'm not joking.
Yeah,
like
a sisterhood.
It is like a sisterhood, but it's like we have a lot of women predominantly in our family, and we show up for each other. And yes, there's like some bickering and some it's to be expected with any family.
Yeah, but that's just human nature, right?
Yeah. But I guess like in my own practice, having these very strong feminine energies, especially from my mother's side of the family, and my grandma Sylvia is someone that you will read a lot about in my book. I describe her as being very much like a tornado. She is not to be fucked with. She's a very strong, like she is a force, and she was
force of nature.
I'm like, she is a force. And I feel her every day. She is someone who I know, I already can hear her, and she's like, she's always rooting for me, but.
I'm glad that you have that connection. My family doesn't really like that I'm a witch and that I practice magic. So I'm the only practitioner in my family. What about your family? Are all of these other women also practicing witches?
No, that's so interesting that you should bring that up. So my mother has always been a very spiritually connected, very spiritually gifted human being. And I love this so much about her because in our home, you know, she loved having angels. She collected angel statues. My mom used to take me when I was probably about 9 years old. She'd go get like she'd get readings from a medium that helped find like lost children. She like worked with like the FBI and stuff. She's like
That's
pretty
crazy.
famous. I'm like, I don't know if I should like mention her name, but like she's pretty famous psychic medium. And so a long time ago, my mom would get readings from her and like she'd record them. But my mom is a very spiritual person. My grandmother was very spiritual, both on my paternal and maternal side. But you know, my aunts and everyone else kind of like fell into like Christianity and like that shit. So like I don't really connect with them. I think interestingly enough, a lot of the women in my family are very psychic. They're very intuitive. However, they choose to channel that energy with like either Christianity or like Catholicism. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of times like there's opportunity for growth in those religions, but the socioeconomic and political ramifications of the church right now are frustrating and bring a lot of judgment upon others, which is too bad because Catholicism is its own kind of magic.
Yeah. And you know, interesting. It's like having both cultures, there's a lot to speak on with that, because when we think about my grandmother, my dad's mother, Althea, she was a practitioner of hoodoo and she grew up in the American, like in the South. So she's like a real Southern hoodoo like practitioner. And that's not something that you can just learn off the internet or like get off of a book. And so I always saw my grandmother as being like, when I was little, I was like, oh, she's just superstitious. Like, I don't, you know, because to me, when I was discovering and really kind of coming into myself at like, you know, maybe 12 years old, you know, we all were watching like The Craft and we saw Wicca and it was like pagan. This is like very Eurocentric ideas of what a witch was or what witchcraft was. So I didn't see my grandmothers as being witches because they didn't look like that. You know what I'm saying? So
I totally understand.
So to me, it was like, oh, she was spiritual. But now as I've gotten older, and really understanding one, my own culture, our own ancestral lineage, our own practices, it brought me back full circle to, oh shit, like this has already been in my family. Like, what girl, like, what have you been looking for? Like, why are you reading these books when you're a teenager? Like, it was already in your family. This is already in your blood.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you were able to find out that you were already living in a spiritual life that maybe you didn't recognize at first. That's really cool. What are some of the daily rituals that you practice in order to achieve like this self-confidence and self-love that you have for yourself?
So I think that some of my, you know, practices, one that I feel that is really important, I think it's important for most magical practitioners, is like, I know this sounds very mundane, but clean your house. Like cleaning your house and organizing and washing the floors and blessing your home. I am a Taurus, so I spend a lot of time in my house and I spend a lot of time in my garden. So a daily ritual for me, I don't go to sleep. I know this is going to sound bizarre, but it's like, this is in my culture. Like my grandma would tell me, like, if you go to sleep with dirty dishes in your sink, that like malevolent spirits will like eat from the dishes and like they will cause chaos in your relationships and like make you argue in your relationship. So you should not have dirty dishes. You shouldn't go to bed with like dirty laundry all over your house or just things that are dirty. So I really like to make sure that I clean up my home, sweeping and again, blowing cinnamon at my front doors and lighting candles. I really like to make sure my space feels comfortable. It feels safe. If I'm doing any type of spell work, I think having a very cleansed environment, because obviously
so
like your
important.
home, it's like your home is a reflection of your mind. I also have ADHD as an adult. So it's like having that and I know for most of my ADHD, ADD people out there, magical practitioners, or even if you have like depression or anxiety, like you're not always going to want to clean up your house and feel motivated. It's fucking hard. But
it is hard.
As a practitioner, just setting aside some time, seeing it as, infusing magic into your home, into your life. So that's one thing, not to keep going on a tangent. So cleaning my house is magical. It's mundane. It's magical. I like infusing
absolutely.
both. As far as confidence rituals go, I love listening to music. I love music. I love art. So when I'm getting dressed in the morning, I love listening to I'm like, okay, what is setting the tone? I love like Venusian. I love very like beauty rituals.
Venusian energy. Bri is referring to the qualities of the planet Venus, such as love, beauty, sensuality, and harmony.
So like doing
That's your Taurus. Yes.
Like doing my skincare and wearing like perfume or taking like a really nice long bath with candles and oils, like those things are really relaxing to me. And I don't know, that's exciting to me.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I think that a lot of people are looking for magic as like, I'm going out into the woods and there's a bonfire and I'm dancing skyclad. But like, yeah, that's it. But it's also everything. It's a lifestyle.
I absolutely enjoy being with other witches from all realms. I love connecting, especially with like women. I love connecting with just magical people when we do get together. So prior to COVID lockdown, I was with 13 other women, other witches, and we went up to upstate New York and oh my God, we had the best time. Pam Grossman was there. Hi, Pam. Pam was there, and just like so many other like cool and fun witches that I love and adore. And we all just got to like spend some time together, like in the woods and, just have a great time.
Reconnect to nature, connect to the sisterhood. I love that.
It's great.
So one of the things that I really loved in your book was how you talked about creation and destruction. Magic is both. Let's dive into that. Tell me about that.
So the destructive element of magic and spirituality, and again, this is from my experience.
Of course.
I've seen some pretty nasty things in some, but I'm not, I guess for me, I'm not really a person who tries to be this like moral judge of like how you should and shouldn't use magic, because what is right for me obviously is not going to be so for everyone. So I don't really necessarily follow the like law of three, or like if you put this out, I mean, for myself, I do think that a destructive element of magic is like using it against someone who doesn't necessarily deserve what you're doing. Like, does the punishment really fit the crime? Because I've dealt with some practitioners who were just simply jealous, like jealous people online.
So, like those spells that they did, do you think they were like hexes, curses? What is?
I've certainly dealt with other practitioners who were very envious of like, if say for example, even doing like a podcast or getting a book deal. Like there are people who will send you the evil eye. We call it mal ojo, as like if they send you evil eye, they want to see you fail. And this hexes, I think most people tend to think like someone is sitting down and like, writing out your name. And it can be something super simple as even social media, like having a hating ass person looking at your pictures. Like, say for example, you can post something really good that happened for you And then you have someone who just like hates you and is jealous and is like, or envious. Like, why does this bitch get to have all this fame?
I totally know what you mean.
Yeah, it's like, why is she getting this? And like, how come I don't have a podcast? Or like, why is she getting a book deal? Or why is this happening? And so it's like, you have these witches. And unfortunately, it is very like common within our community where we do have other practitioners who are not necessarily like, they don't align with you. They're not nice. And I don't, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not like all for love and light. I definitely do think that you need to embrace your darkness. There is a quote where it's like, if you can't hex, you can't heal. And I think that people who live their life of like, oh no, like I'm just a white witch, I don't do hexes and I won't. It's like, you're not going to defend yourself against someone who wishes to seek you, like to send destruction to you or harm you. I'm going to defend myself.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways to deal with different kinds of like hexes and curses and ways. I personally don't send, like I try very hard to be thoughtful of my mind and not send negative energy, but that's my role as a priestess. Like I do hold myself to that moral standard, but that's not everyone's path. And I respect that and understand it. And that's why I wanted to talk about destructive magic, because it's not something I'm associated with or understand very well.
Yeah, that's, I mean, for me growing up, and again, having Black and Mexican ancestry, and, you know, there's a lot of practices that do not turn the other cheek. And this is something that my friend Michael and I, we always joke about. We're like, we're witches, we're not saints. I'm not turning the other cheek. If someone sends something to destroy me, I'm going to send it back to you. And I have no qualms about doing that.
That's a really good way to like put it. You're like witches, not saints. I think that's a really good way to put that.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't abide by Christian ways of thinking. You know, I don't, again, I don't turn the other cheek. I'm not going to. So if someone, I believe that if you fight fire with fire. And for some people, they will, you know, they're like, no, I don't believe in binding.
Binding. In witchcraft, binding refers to a magical practice of restraining, immobilizing, or inhibiting the will of a person, spirit, or entity.
I don't want to, you know, put them in a jar, and I don't want to do that. And it's like, okay, well, you know, that's up to you. But I don't think that we should criticize, you know, someone who will practice defensive magic. But culturally, you know, I grew up practicing in a way, especially with my grandmother. No, you defend yourself, you send it back. Or for me, it's like transmuting the energy. I'm not going
that's interesting. I wouldn't think like send back rituals or like a return to sender as like a hex, but I guess it could be, right? You're sending that negative energy back. Yeah, because I would think it's not my intention that I'm sending illness to them, that I would consider that a hex. That's just
if
my
they've
opinion.
sent illness to you, and you know, they're giving you the evil eye, and they're like, well, I want her career to diminish. I don't want her to have a podcast. I want her to not have a job. I don't want, why does she have this? You know? And it's like, it doesn't necessarily, and this is what I was trying to say. It's like hexes and ill intentions are not necessarily always like conscious. You know, sometimes people are unconscious.
Absolutely.
Of the envy.
Absolutely.
But it's still equally as destructive. You know what I'm saying? Because envy
I totally agree with you.
Yes. So it's like envy can make you sick. I've seen it plenty of times. I've experienced it. I've had priestesses and other magicians who just get in their own way, and they have used their magic for destruction.
And that's the ego, right? And those people are not acting in the best light. Yikes. You know, that reminds me of when I was young. I grew up in Florida. So I grew up around a lot of hoodoo and Santeria. And I remember people who were known to send negative energy to others. You watch them age.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's great. Like the energy that sucks from you. It's really scary.
It is really scary. And this is something that, you know, a lot of people don't want to talk about. But I do feel that when you're using your energy and you're using magic. And I don't use terms like dark or black magic or white magic. I don't use those things because I do fully believe that it is the intent of the person who is doing the work. But you see it on them. It's a stench.
Yeah, it's
a stench on them. It's aging. It's weight gain. It's just
the
so
energy's off. Yeah, you can feel it.
You can feel it. And there's certain botanicas and stores I won't even go into because I know that the owners and I know that the practitioners there, it's like just something feels off. It's not aligned with me. So I shouldn't say off. It's just not aligned with me. Right. So it's not something that they're inherently doing that's wrong. It's just not aligned to what I want to have in my life or what the practices I do. So I'm very cognizant of that. But I talk with my friends a lot about this. We're like, you see it. Like you really do. You can see it. And it's just like,
it's under the eyes. It's like a hollowness you can kind of see. It's like the face starts to sag. Like it's wild.
It's a smell too. I'm not joking. One of my girlfriends and I, we were in a botanica in Los Angeles and we saw this woman in there and she just has such a stench on her. And I don't know because I'm very sensitive, not only to people's energy, but it's like smells. It's just, it was just bad. And so I was looking and I was like, oh my God, did you see that person? But again, not to put judgment on whatever she's doing. I'm like, girl, that's on you. That's what you want. I'm like, that's what you want to be up to, but that's not what I'm.
That's not for me.
Not for me.
Yeah, I respect that. And I think that that's something that, we have to think about is the magic that we do reflects on our physical body. Our energetic body will reflect on us.
But I'm like, that's just, it is what it is. I'm like, you got to know who you're working with and like, what are you, what are you giving in return? Because that's also a huge part of it. It's like, even working with ancestors and even working with any deity, I think that certain people get shit like very confused where they just keep asking and asking and asking and asking for things. And I'm like, how would you feel if you were in a relationship with someone who consistently asked you for money, a place to live? I need a new car. I need this. I need this. And so it's like, your relationship with your ancestors, with your spirits, with your deities that you work with, this is not just a transactional thing where you're as a tit for tat. It's like you need to honor them. You need to show them respect.
It's a respect. Yeah, it's a relationship.
It's a relationship and build that before you start asking and pandering for things,
Totally. Yeah, they're not ATMs. They're not. I know people like that as well. So we've talked about the blood aspect of your book, the magic part of your book. So let's get into the fun sex part of your book.
Ooh la la.
So sex, as you describe it here, is a celebration of the goddess within you with less femininity. Share with me that journey. Like how did you become a sex witch?
I've always been, again, being the Venusian energy within me. I've always honored sex. I have always loved my own body and loved sex as a form of, energetic exchange, in sex
self-expression,
creativity. And honestly, just because I'm a horny witch, but it's true. I just love sex in all forms. I think I like talked about that too in my book, how even like as a kid, like I grew up and I was just like, I loved watching Madonna. And I remember watching the video for Like a Prayer and seeing that was like so risque. And it was like, to me, she was just kind of like giving a fuck you to like the Catholic Church. And
totally. That definitely Madonna did that.
Right. And it's like, I've always loved just like I guess what people would call like the dark feminine or like the demonic feminine. But this to me was always, if you even go back to like these archetypes where it's like, I love Lilith. I love women or, these entities that have always, and even in mythology, it's like had, ownership over their sexuality and over their body and over how they showed up in the world.
Yeah, I really resonate with the Lilith energy as well. And I think that a lot of people are scared of that, like succubus kind of energy. You write about the succubus
I
in the
love
book.
it. I love the succubus energy, mostly, again, because it's something that many women are taught to shy away from.
Succubus energy. Succubus is a mythological creature who is believed to tempt, seduce, and draw energy from individuals, most often men.
For me, that is unapologetically showing up and being fierce as fuck in the world. And it doesn't matter who's afraid of that and who's scared of it and what that looks like to them.
Yeah.
I think that you should always be unapologetic about your sexuality. And that doesn't necessarily have to be for like women, you know what I mean? Women practitioners,
Yeah.
but I'm speaking for women and women identifying people because that is my experience, and,
Right, of
and
course. Yeah.
that's something that is important.
Yes. And so, like, as you were talking about, like, the sexual repression of the Catholic Church, and we've seen, really since like the women's right movement, we've seen that movement of liberation of women's sexuality. And I think that we're coming into a new age where we're getting to really have that wholeness of women identifying people, the light, like Virgin Mary aspect, but also the dark Lilith aspect. And I think that's incredibly exciting.
I think it's exciting, but we also still need to acknowledge that many of our sisters who work as sex workers, they're still marginalized. They're still murdered.
Mm-hmm.
They're still
Yes.
being killed. They're still facing
the
so
respect
much.
Isn't there. That's the problem. And the fear of women who are sexually liberated.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that's really important for us to acknowledge, that, we have all of these like incel men and like these movements with men like Andrew Tate and like, just this misogyny that's praised. And I think there's such an imbalance with the masculine. There's such an imbalance with, even embracing dark feminine energy. And so my hope is for more witches and practitioners of magic to really stand, alongside of our marginalized sex working community, to honor them, to give them a safe space, to allow them to voice their, issues that have been going on.
Yeah, I always think about this dichotomy that comes up is like you're marginalizing the people that you're buying from. And like, cause I like that always like blows my mind.
But there's
like,
always that Madonna horror complex that most men in patriarchy, we've seen it throughout history, time and time again. It's like the sex worker or the witch or the seductress or the enchantress. It's like, even if you're a witch, it's like, okay, if you're old or if you're unattractive, then you're an ugly old hag. If you're too sexy and too beautiful, then you're a slut and you're a seductress. So it's like, well, we can't win. And that's why I think we can win, is because when you become and you are reclaiming the witch, when you're reclaiming that title, we're taking back the power of like, you do not get to define me. And yes, I will own being the succubus. I will own being the bitch. I will own being the witch. I am going to own being the demon. It's like, that's important, because why should you allow these people to define you? And again, having patriarchy stepping in to really like diminish our light. And I've seen it too many times. I've experienced it. You've experienced it. Right? Where it's like,
of course,
we're now reclaiming a part of our birthright.
When we're embracing the goddess energy, whether it's the Venusian energy, whether it's the Saturnian Persephone energy, what can we do in our daily lives to bring that feeling of seduction and beauty into our lives, that glamour magic?
Oh my God, this is my favorite subject. I'm so happy you asked me this, Ashley. I don't really care anymore, where people are like, that's vain and this is too materialistic. I think when we step outside of other people's perceptions of how we choose to celebrate ourselves, then that's where the real magic starts, you know? And so simple things like getting up, and it's like, if you want to indulge in like having a beautiful glass of like expensive champagne, or like going to get your hair done, or getting a massage or a facial.
Yes, a massage.
Right? It's like feeling embodied, even and it doesn't even have to cost a thing, right? So if we're not going to talk about the materialistic aspect of honoring the goddess or celebrating, it's even in service. It's cooking for your friends, or caring for your plants, or tending to your garden, or tending to animals, like your plant babies, you know, like all of those things are just, those are ways of like honoring the goddess and in her many forms.
Another way that I like to add to that honoring of the goddess is really focusing my energy into positive things in my life, whether I'm developing a hobby, working on my goals, or things that make me happy. Like, don't just focus on the grind. The hustle culture is out. Like, we're done.
I know we're done with that. It makes me exhausted to even to think about it. It's like the burnout that I experienced prior, like during COVID. That was really hard, you know, trying to maintain a business. I had to shut down my studio. I had a really cute studio and I loved it, and it had to get shut down, and not really knowing where, you know, life was going and our own health and our own sanity.
Yeah,
you know, there was so much that was challenged.
Your book is so beautiful. Oh my God. Did you take those photos yourself? Like, is that your art? Where did this come from?
Yes. So my whole journey, especially with creating the HoodWitch, many people who are not familiar are going to see my visual storytelling is what I like to call it. So I really am a firm believer that, you know, how they have that saying that says, if, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I love symbolism. I love photos. I love contemporary art. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a symbol is worth 1,000 images. So it's like, I love having like symbolism, and the photos and the art direction for my book was all me. I was very hands-on with it. I helped design every single page that is in that book, along with my friend Paulette Terry. She is the woman responsible for doing the collage art. And yeah, that was huge for me. I really love, I loved the aesthetic and the colors of having like, I like to call it
stunning.
Like, thank you. I like to call it like spirit collaging, because it's really about like how I like think, how do I express this? It's like my brain really is like just a collage of like images from like so much weird shit from like growing up in my life.
I know what you mean.
So that's why I've always been a huge fan of like Kenneth Anger and like John Waters.
Kenneth Anger, an American filmmaker known for his experimental and avant-garde films and his involvement in occult circles. John Waters, I am divine, the queen of filth.
Oh, Pythian, you know he's one of my favorite directors.
You mean both of our favorite directors.
Just having these very like, I wouldn't say like obscure, but just like really fun, just like cheeky,
It's
love
totally
like,
cheeky. I love
right?
that.
It's like, I love like Penny Salinger. So it's like all of these artists, I love like collage and mysticism. And so to me, that was like the visual representation of like what was in my brain. And I wanted to create like a book that felt almost like a scrapbook, where it's like, it has spells, it has photos, it has pieces of my childhood. So it's like all of these things were taking and pulling from parts of my brain and putting it into this book.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like, I felt the love when I looked at it. It's so different from other occult works and other occult books. I can't wait for this to hit the shelves.
Good in a good way or good in a bad way? No, I'm kidding.
Of course, the best way.
Yay!
Yes. So, Bri, as we begin to wrap up today, I want to talk about your book's message. Again, as we talked about in the beginning, that women and women identifying people are coming into their power. They're learning for protection. They're learning about honoring their bloodline. What else would you like them to know?
Honor themselves. I want them to really, it's like, you don't have to listen to everything that I'm saying. And so I wrote this in my book. I'm like, take what you need and leave the rest of it. I am not trying to be this like be all and end all authority of magic, or like, you know what I mean? Like how some people are like,
totally.
this is the way and this is the only way. I'm giving you a glimpse into my realm and to what inspired me and what drove me to even write this. And it's like, I want people to just take a glimpse. And again, if there's something in there that you love and you want to build off of, amazing. There's something in there you see, you're like, oh, I want to learn more about that. Or like, I want to delve a little bit deeper into this, then do that as well. So I wrote this book truly as a means to really like share with the world this culmination of like my life and my journey. It's going to be 10 years when this podcast airs. It will be my 10-year anniversary for the launch of TheHoodWitch, right? Thank you. So it's like, there's just so much to celebrate and I'm excited. And I'm just like really hoping, especially for women. And again, like I said, women identifying people, women of color, young girls and young baby witches everywhere. I'm like, I hope that, and even witches of all practices and of all levels, no matter what that is, it's like, I really do hope that you just see the love and the beauty that I've like shared in this world. And like, I know that I've really helped to pave almost this like modern witch renaissance that's happening right now. Because like when I started TheHoodWitch, there was no one else doing like what I was doing, like the way I was doing it, especially like
very cool. From
my nails to, the visuals to all of those things. It's like, and now we see so many different, or it's like the hood this and the witch this.
Oh yeah,
like,
you started a trend. Yeah.
Right. But it's like we're even seeing, and I'm not saying like I'm the only person, but I'm like, I know what I've created. And it's like the visuals.
You paved the way.
There was a big, paving of the way, but it's like even seeing like certain brands, okay? Like I've had to fucking send like stuff to Starbucks and they were trying to rip me off, like, and a long time ago.
Crazy.
Yes. So it's like from these mega corporations, they pay attention. They see what's going on. They see my magic.
I love that.
But it's true. And honestly, like, I'm just super grateful for having a platform and creating a platform and being my authentic fucking self and literally just speaking my truth and sharing that with the world.
Well, thank you so much, Bri. It's been such an honor to have you here. And Blood, Sex, Magic comes out everywhere in October, right?
Yes, October 31st on Halloween.
All right. We love a Halloween drop. That's amazing. And where can our followers find you on social media?
They can find me at TheHoodWitch on Instagram. They can find me at TheHoodWitch on Threads. I'm at TheHoodWitch on Twitter. And if you want my personal thoughts, or like my unfiltered thoughts, no, it's at Young Kundalini on Twitter.
Oh, thank you so much, Bri. And until next time, mystics, stay magical. The Occult Unveiled is produced by F Street Productions and M is for Magic. Our executive producers are Ashley Ryan, Michael A. Simon, and Scott Kushner. Our show is produced by Deborah Simon. Our audio producer is Bill Schultz. Our talent booker is Perry Turcott. Laura Kaufman is our coordinator. Thank you for listening, and for more information on any of the topics you heard today, plus really cool links and ways to learn about Ashley, Pythian, and all of our guests, go to theoccultunveiled.com website. The Occult Unveiled, copyright 2023.